Generally, a benefits consultant helps companies and human resource professionals figure out which benefits they're going to need for their best fit on their workforce and for their business. Which vendor will provide that particular benefit, and so on and so forth. Greetings, everyone, and welcome to today's show. I'm John Clay, your show host and chief strategy guide. And everything is good here. I hope everything is going well for you. A shout out to all the folks that have weighed in and commented and left positive response to our streamcast. And a quick shout out to our sponsor today. Today's sponsor is none other than Better Source Benefits. Check it out at www.bettersourcebenefits.com and check it out for benefits, options, and solutions. So, using a variety of tools, benefits consultants can help craft a benefit strategy for clients. And a real professional is able to do this and evaluate many moving parts with a complete toolbox of solutions and strategies that will help you meet your corporate objectives as a client. It's exciting because a key piece to consider in this whole thing is that, yes, it should be client focused. And we see so often, many times out here in the field that, and as a recovering employee of a large insurance company, I can always say that most of the time when we were delivering benefits, it was on behalf of the company as a company rep. And most of that was designed by the company and not in favor of the client. Amen. We've seen it. We've delivered those renewals. Imagine a Blue Cross plan that's offering brokers a $50,000 bonus to move from a self-insured model back to a fully insured model, much more lucrative for Blue Cross, and they're papering the file with flyers and trips and cash, 50,000 in some instances, to bring you back to their more profitable book of business. Well, in sectors like financial services, that's totally illegal on an undisclosed basis. Right? It's felony, right? Land a person in jail. In healthcare, however, clear conflicts like this abound, and they exist every single day and are often taken for granted. Most companies, healthcare spending is their number one or two line item on their P&L. If not one, two, they're probably number three. So two or three. And the challenge is that few CEOs really give it the resources and focus and attention as much as a professional consult will do to put things on the right track. And, CEOs and other C-suite executives will focus a whole lot more attention on other line items much further down on the P&L than they will on healthcare. They defer and abdicate, if you will, their fiduciary responsibility to others, many times HR. And we have those scenarios all across the country. It's not limited just here in Kentucky or Eastern United States. It's all across the board. We've got partners from across the country, and they all tell stories, horror stories, really, of how true professionals can help, and abdicating that responsibility is not good for a client. While HR is critical, right? HR is critical when it comes to rolling out and communicating a plan. Most of the time, the financial decisions are best left to officers and others with financial backgrounds. So let's don't belabor that, but the show today is knowing how to select a benefits consultant, because the benefits advisor or consultant who has the right skill set can make the experience in the benefits industry more clear, because that's always an opaque and a big territory for a lot of people to try to tackle, and seasoned pros can navigate through the wicket here, the forest, and come out on the other side with a right nice package. So how did we get here? But let's talk about a little bit first on the background. How did we get here? Some historical context from the 70s and the 80s, okay, when provider networks were first created. Back in the early days, you had an indemnity program. It was any doctor, any hospital, anywhere. And so what came into being in the 70s and 80s, you had networks. You had provider networks, and those became the latest and greatest innovation in healthcare. And what did that give you? Well, it gave you a limited panel of providers that you would have to go to in order to get the best benefits. But it also was enticing to see a lower price point on the premiums using that provider network. So it allowed insurance companies to differentiate through the discounts they negotiated with providers. And that marketing message is still continuing today. Hey, we've got the best network. We've got the best this or that. But it really does come down to, is my doctor in the network, right? How many times have we heard this? So in that growth of market share, at least in some areas, it's driven financing costs, because at the end of the day, the attraction machine was, let's incentivize brokers to drive more business to our PPO or HMO, as it may be. And, the one thing that has not changed over time is that the insurance companies are still paying brokers a compensation called commission. And that commission is on the premium, or most likely the policies they sell. Depends on if it's a per policy or per dollar premium commission. And that's a business model that dates all the way back to the 1800s. So when we fast forward to the 2010 Affordable Care Act, okay, one of the components of that Affordable Care Act was a guarantee that was sold as a limiter to the margins that a health insurance company could make at 15 to 20% of claims paid. So before the Affordable Care Act was introduced, most health insurance companies were working on a margin of 1 to 5%. With the passage of that law was sold as a cap to prevent them from overcharging, but it has worked quite the opposite, in a manner that has actually delivered a guarantee margin for health insurers under the name of the affordability. And we've seen it blow up on premiums and costs for employees on their cost shares for deductibles and out-of-pockets. And the stock prices have gone like a hockey stick up in the $400 to $500 per share range. So the idea that it would prevent health insurance companies from being overly profitable is a joke, because I think in hindsight, very clearly, that has not been the case. So what we deal with, misaligned incentives. Perfect graphic here, because first of all, after paying medical claims, broker commissions, and normal administrative costs, again, those payers weren't making anywhere close to 15 to 20%. And they were more, like we said, in the 1 to 5% range. So they were making a smaller percentage, albeit of a very large number, but now they're making a larger portion of an even larger, very large number. And so you have profit is now tied to a percentage of the premium, which is a function of underlying medical costs. The carrier now has an increased financial incentive to let costs just go out of control. And that's what we're seeing today, is that we've seen runaway costs. We have no control over those claims costs and no control over the frequency and severity of those claims. That the summary is the ACA from 2010 to today has actually turbocharged this dynamic and exploded the cost of healthcare. So the common theme and the common impression is that insurance carriers' large networks and client pools give them buying power to help negotiate a better reimbursement and greater leverage in negotiating prices with everything from hospitals to doctors to prescription drugs. This is nothing could be further from the truth, folks, because the more patients in a hospital system for any particular carrier, the more leverage the hospital system has with that carrier, right? Well, they can't have that, because the hospital comes back and tries to negotiate fees, and what happens? They come to an impasse, and you see these letters come out and ads in the newspaper and radio that as of January 1 or March 31st, this hospital system will no longer accept a health insurance plan. Well, what happens? The market goes crazy. The pressure comes back to the insurance company to get this hospital in the network now. Get them in there now, without regard of quality, of price, anything that makes sense from a business standpoint, because it's all about the access to that provider, and they ignore price and quality. Boom. The very largest employers have been fully invested in this arrangement for years, right? And if you get into, the peeling back of this model, the brokers were paid a percentage of premium, and employers were deferring the entire responsibility of controlling costs to the insurance carrier. Individuals consumed whatever care their clinician told them they needed to have, and everybody is supposedly happy, right? Everybody thinks that's a great model. But as the costs have just skyrocketed over time, only winners that we have here are the insurance company and the care providers, and of course, brokers who are incentivized to maintain the status quo. It's a broken process. Thank you. Here's what typically happens when you sit down year after year after year for companies that are fully insured. We talk about how this works for self-insured companies shortly, but basically we sit down around 60 days before the renewal date. Your broker gets a renewal offer from the current carrier that has very little information about what's going on with your case for the past year, explaining the proposed new premiums or any of that kind of stuff. They come in, they say, well, you had a bad year, or the costs are up due to a pandemic, or whatever story they've been weaving into their minds over the last few years or months. And they'll say, well, hey, I've got this renewal in hand. I'm going to shop the market. Give me an updated census and I'll go shop the market. And, we used to have but they're going to get a better offer. They're going to shop the market for a better offer. I almost forgot that part, because you got to throw that in there. And so there were 23 carriers in 1990. Then we had the first level of reform in 1995 with Clinton Care, right? So today we're just down to about 4 large insurance carriers across the country, major, nationwide. You've got sales of smaller providers in certain geographic areas, but let's look at that. Pause for a moment, consider that if you have less than 100 employees, you get very little information, no data. You have 4 options to choose from. And when you get the results back from the shopping the market, most of those quotes are within 10 to 15% of each other. So the question is, all right, how much does it take to move? And let this soak in the back of your mind. If a company wants rid of your case, do they give you a huge increase to drive you away? Oh, no, they do not. They'll give you a decent rate increase. Okay, because what they want is they want the competitors to see that it's not that bad, and they'll come in and cherry pick what they think is a good risk, because you don't get any data. You got no information, right? So they'll give them a not that bad renewal rate, and another carrier will come in. All these filings are public, right? Everybody knows what everybody else's rates are. So it's a little shell game. They play a game. And so you have, you move from carrier A to carrier B to carrier C to carrier D. And then whoopsie daisy, you're back on the merry-go-round, back to carrier A in about 3 to 4 years. And it's crazy because if you're in the minority of money losing clients, you're not necessarily going to see a high renewal offer. You might see an average renewal offer, and then you get picked away, and all of a sudden, boom, you got a huge rate increase the following year. They want rid of you. They're not going to give you a bad renewal because they don't want the bad PR on top of losing the group. They'll just let their fingers do the walking, and with the stroke of a pen, they'll quietly quit you. So, playing the competition. Let's talk about that. Generally, carriers want to win business, and they try to do that with their pricing. And they'll do it with a strategy that's as high as they can, but as low as it can be to motivate you to move. We used to say, okay, well, if it's a 15% differential, then it makes sense to move, right? We'll re-enroll everybody for a 15% difference, sometimes 10. Now, if you get an 18% renewal and the other carriers think you'll move to them for as little as 6%, they'll offer a 12% proposal. Now you're talking about very large numbers now. It used to be when it was $100 a month, $6 didn't matter. But when single premiums are $1,000 a month and you're talking 6%, that's big money. You add another zero, right? $6, $60, $600. Hey, it's all a numbers game, right? And if your local broker is loyal to a particular carrier, and they usually are. I mean, hey, we just talked about a $50,000 offer. Well, the bonuses and overrides come cascading in about this time of the year, January, February, March. You'll see the big checks roll in, and all those bonuses have been calculated on their book of business from last year to this year. The retention calculations are in, and all this good type stuff. Hey, they'll take that 12% offer back to the incumbent, right? So you got an 18% offer here on renewal. You got a 12% offer from a competitor, and the broker takes the 12 and gives it to the incumbent and says, hey, they'll keep you for if you'll match the 12%. So what do? That's never be so sure of what you want that you wouldn't take a better deal. So instead of saying, well, no, go ahead and let's see what else they'll come up with, they'll move the incumbent. They stop right there. Thank you. They stop right there. They take your less bad renewal and they sell you on that and say, well, they came back and matched a less bad renewal. So you wind up from an 18 to 12. You still get a 12% rate increase. And you don't get any benefit from the shopping other than a higher premium and perhaps a crappier plan. Because then the next offer is boom, boom, boom. They've shown their value, but if you want to hold it to a no change, we can cut these benefits. Or we can offer a dual option, and we can have one plan that will hold you to no change, and you can fund that. And if they want to buy up to the old plan, they can do that and pay more out of the pocket. So you're giving them an option, right? You're showing them the gun, but it's in the form of a paper gun. And it's the enrollment form for the keep your current benefits. Don't forget, if it's tied to the premium, your broker still enjoys a 12% rate increase, compensation increase on the new premiums. There's a misaligned incentive. Let's show the misaligned incentive one more time. Bring it up here, please. Boom. Let's cut the benefits. Well, where's the incentive? Where's the client focus on that? Thank you very much. What's the bottom line? Once that bottom line number is reached, if the increase is still more than your budget can handle, back to what we said, cut your benefits. And one of the things that we've seen in cutting the benefits is a dramatic out-of-pocket amount increase. So we now have $8,150 out-of-pocket limits. Well, let's put that into perspective. If your average wage is $12 an hour at 2,000 hours per year, that's 50 weeks at 40 hours a week, all right? At $12 an hour, your average annual salary is $24,000. If it's $15, it's $30,000 a year. If you have a $3,000 deductible, that's 10% of your gross wage. If you have a $5,000 to $6,000 out of pocket, a medical emergency is 20% of your gross wages for that employee. Now that to us leaves a lot of employees functionally uninsured. How can a person go and present a health insurance program that leaves them owing as much as 10 to 20% of their gross income and call that a benefit? A lot of employees are functionally uninsured. So what does that what happens there? They're afraid to use their plan. They will delay care until a stage 1 reaches a stage 4, because at stage 4, it's a life and death decision. Then it doesn't really matter. And, you know, the longer that they hold on, the person gets much sicker. It creates both a large claim down the road, and it creates additional pressure to increase rates. So it's a bad system that's getting worse, because the incentive for these insurance companies we just covered is the more they pay in claims, the more profit they generate. So if you defer care till a stage 1 hits a stage 4, the only people who win are the insurance companies and the providers, of course, because they're billing more to take care of you. One of the last tricks that we see too is that brokers will typically love to wait until the very last minute to deliver your renewal. They will sit down with you with 30 days to go and say, well, that's the best you can do. It may be because they're proverbially fat and happy and see no need to cater to your needs. It may be they have the bad news to deliver on an 18 or 19% rate increase, and they just can't bring themselves to deliver that, so they wait to the last minute because it's going to be a tough conversation either way. And if it's not perceived that they're doing the best they can, then it creates an opportunity for you to reach out and talk with someone else who might have a solution. Most likely it will feel that, you know, it'll reduce your ability to talk to somebody else. I mean, just to repeat that. So why do many brokers support this system? Number one, it's because it's all they've ever known. It's something that's been taught to them by the insurance companies, believe it or not. They would always deliver last minute renewals, especially bad ones. And, you got the typical age for a lot of brokers these days is well into their 50s. And as premiums go up, so do their commissions. And they're coasting on easy street because they've got a pretty good sized book of business. And carriers still offer those large bonuses and retention incentives. So if they sell new business a little bit at a time and renew the old business right where it is, it's a wonderful life. And so, with few exceptions, many states still allow incentive compensation. So you're not talking just about cash money, you're talking about trips, lavish trips, as much as a 67% pay increase over current. And a less loyal broker just sees their compensation cut year after year after year. And, if you don't play ball with the big boys, then you just don't make as much money when you market and sell a small case with a fully insured carrier. But let's pivot. Let's talk about the self-insured market. How does this whole experience translate into the self-insured market? Most consultants, although not all, that support self-insured plans are far more sophisticated than brokers that simply use the spreadsheet that we just profiled. If they're not, the self-insured programs can be an economic and financial disaster of epic proportions if they don't know what they're doing. So the insurance companies have coached these status quo brokers to stay away from these self-funded programs. And we've heard this for years because, you're getting into something that's real risky, or you're getting into something that you may not know a lot about. So you need to study up on it before you ever do it. And most of the human nature in people are the self-development just doesn't happen after a certain age. And it's a sad thing because, you're talking about a consultant in this space who has to know some things. They have to know how to set up a plan and build it out component by component. They got to have relationships with trusted partners so that they can build a plan on behalf of a client. They need to understand stop loss to be sure that they put the protections in place for a client so they don't face a financial disaster. You don't want anything that's going to put you out there in a negative cash flow, and certainly not into a risky situation that could ruin or rob you of your business, right? After all, if you're self-insured, you're now the insurance company. Basically, you buy some protection, but you're funding the claims as the client, as the employer for your employees. So if you properly set up these self-funded plans, it actually gives you far more control over costs. There's never a surprise on a self-funded plan that's well set up because you know exactly where you are across the year. And so you can sit down and look at the way things are tracking, and you can actually have a low or no increase on your plan. Never a surprise. How about that? Custom tailored to meet your objectives as a client with stop loss protection, plan design, partnerships that deliver value day in and day out, and an excellent third-party administrator that is responsible for paying the claims with your money according to the specifications that you set forth in your plan. And as we've said on prior shows, we say that one size fits one. Not everybody's business model is the same. And when a person takes over and says, okay, we're going to bring to you one of these fully insured options, that's an option that's an off the rack deal. And at the end of the day, Those off-the-rack deals are typically designed in favor of insurance companies. Hello. The network that you can rent for your self-funded program a lot of times is from a large carrier that provides a discount off bill charges. You want to have some balanced billing protection so that you have an indemnification for your employees so that they don't find themselves twisting out there with a large bill and no one to help them. You know, the employers have a duty under ERISA to only pay fair and reasonable charges. And we see some bad actors in the provider space that are egregious in their billing practices. After that price is determined and paid, what's fair and reasonable, some providers will still send a bill to the employee, to the patient. And, you know, we've got 5 demographics. You've got baby boomers now in the under 65 space, few of us still left. And then you've got next gen and all the way down to the millennials. You've got 5 different segments of the population. And some of the older people will hate to owe a bill. And once they receive a bill from a provider, they'll write the check the same day. They won't take time to look to see if they owe the bill. They'll just send it and pay it. Not only do you need those protections, when you're building a self-funded plan, you want a good pharmacy manager to handle the prescription side. You want to have excellent, transparent pharmacy that eliminate over 32 hidden cash flows in these pharmacy benefit contracts, because there are 3 that control everything: CVS, Optum Rx, owned by United Healthcare, and then Express Scripts. All of us have probably seen one form or another: CVS Pharmacy, Optum Rx, or Express Scripts on the ID cards that we've carried over the years. Well, those are the big 3 pharmacy benefit managers, but they have huge margins baked into the cost of these prescription drugs. And we want those contracts to be a better contract and a self-funded arrangement that favor the client, favor the employee, and ultimately give you a better value and a long-term, predictable, repeatable, and measurable performance. And of course, pricing contracts. What is fair and what is reasonable? We grew up with knowing that the usual, customary, and reasonable was the standard. But if you'll think about it, UCR has been replaced by discount off billed charges. See that play on words? What's usual, customary, and reasonable is no longer the standard language in most of these contracts. They give a discount off billed charges. And the providers know that they inflate the charges and they take a set discount from one of these large fully insured carriers. They can give a 55% discount off billed charges if their billed charges are up here north of unbelievable. And so many times what we can say is standardized reimbursements are at the Medicare level. How many people accept Medicare across these United States of America? Dang near everybody, because if they don't have any business. We got 10,000 people a day turning 65, right? And have had since 2020, 2020, 40, I mean, a lot. So you got all these people on Medicare. So Medicare is the new standard. And how often does Medicare go up with an increase in price reimbursements? Very seldom, because it's government controlled. Well, if we pay a percent above Medicare, pricing contracts look a whole lot more attractive than a discount off bill charges. Check it out at www.bettersourcebenefits.com to see some results on where we've achieved those kind of results for clients of our own. Now, you're self-insured and you're seeing the level of claims and spending detail that you've never seen before. Yet costs continue to go up year over year at a similar rate, and you save some money that first 4 to 6 months. But now what? This is where the rubber meets the road for an advanced consultant. Okay. A common misstep, what we've seen is people have said they've rolled out these wellness programs. We've got a partner, Al Lewis, who's got a $3 million reward for anyone that could show him a real return on investment of a wellness program. $3 million, never been claimed. He's standing by to pay that money. Shout out to Al. At worst, these wellness programs can cost even more money than they were designed to control. Why? Because the poke and prod approach to wellness gets people in front of a provider, and the next thing you know, they're in a full workup battery of tests to try to find out why something aches or pains or what have you. And it drives up their costs. It drives potentially harming your employees. They might come out of there with a prescription that they don't need or want. They might come out of there with a procedure proposed for anything, because there are some bad actors. We've had several cases around where people done unnecessary heart catheterizations, bypass surgery, stents installed. I mean, there are some bad actors, and they're still PPO providers and fully insured arrangements. They still have their license. They just move from one town to another, set up their shop, and they're still in the network. Yes. Love America. Forgiveness abounds on the healthcare side of things. 72% of companies have these wellness programs. All right. And I assure you that 72% of these companies are not happy with their healthcare spending trends, even in the face of wellness. A progressive consultant will bring you a multi-year healthcare plan designed to lower the quantity of care delivered, built on a proven approach to lower the actual cost for all employees, whether they are healthy or not. Think about that. You only pay for what you need. We don't use it. We use it, but we don't abuse it, number one. We used to talk about that back in the days of a mutual company. Use it, don't abuse it, because the more you use it, the more it's abused, the more it will cost down the road. But in the end of the day, you're looking at a plan that reflects some bullet points here. It reflects serious consideration given to the ERISA language and fiduciary responsibility for an employer. It has a focus on value-based primary care. It has an emphasis on managing the highest cost outlier patients and putting them into a financial arrangement that's actually going to benefit them to get them the best outcome possible. And then you're going to see transparent medical markets with reference-based pricing so that you actually know the prices before you have a service. Then you're also going to have transparent pharmacy benefits. And then you're going to have data proficiency. But knowing the actual prices that you pay for services, how many of us actually know what we're going to be charged the day of services? I just went to a new appointment this week. Had my hearing checked. When I left, I said, "How much do I owe you today?" They couldn't tell me. I got a bill today in the email, $296 for a hearing test. And I was like, "Oh, okay, you owe that." Well, wait, that's before my explanation of benefits comes from my insurance company. So that's the gross billed charges. We're going to see what the discount is at the end of this day. And hopefully we won't have to pay the whole $296. So the data proficiency and transparent pharmacy benefits. Data proficiency, we want real-time results on how we're spending those monies for a medical plan. We all have a running total in our checkbook. Doesn't it make sense to have that same kind of detail for your medical plan? I think so. It's a situational awareness. You have to know where you are in the checkbook, just like you for healthcare, just like you would in any other capital expense. Did I say capital expense? Yes, I did, because operational expense is something that you consider that you can't control. Capital expense is something that you focus on and you demand a return on investment. You demand performance on measurable, predictable, and repeatable results. And you have a long-term strategy with that capital expense. And if human capital is not an expense, and you're not demanding ROI and performance from your human capital, whether it's actual human or the investment in that human capital in the form of employee benefits, click on www.bettersourcebenefits.com and let's go, because we can help on some of that. So as you can see, when we're talking about all of these components for health insurance on a self-funded basis, that value actually counts more than fees. You know, when you start picking all these pieces, putting all these pieces together in a puzzle to make a health plan sing, value counts more than fees. A lot of us look at the cost of a broker as a liability. But back to what we were just saying, if it's considered a capital expense, then the broker compensation is a very small part of what the actual value delivered is, right? Because if you've got an expert that's delivering all these solutions and they're performing, it's like building a Hot Wheels track and running your cars down the Hot Wheels track. If that track is smooth and you never have anybody jump the curves, and you've got the loops and the curves and all that good type stuff, you're ready to go, and you just keep sending cars down the road. And that's what we like to do here. It's not Hot Wheels track, it's life, but we want to have as enjoyable experience if you go through the medical industrial complex as you can possibly have. So as you can see, the actual insurance is a smaller component of a self-funded health plan than a traditional fully insured program. In the self-insured model, the stop loss is the only insurance policy purchased. Generally, accounting takes care of the rest. So you're talking 20% of the cost is actual insurance. The rest is mostly claims. So what do we do with our solutions? It's our focus to manage the claims. Because once you manage claims, the frequency and severity of claims, right? And you've got control on a measurable, repeatable, and predictable model, and you've got a long-term solution in here. Good stuff. So you don't necessarily want to pick a consultant on how low their fee is either. Okay? We have some that say, well, the value of these solutions is a whole lot less than what a person charges, so we should be looking elsewhere. Well, let's remind you of a couple of things. If the fee is in low single digits, watch it, because obviously they don't value what they're doing. They're just throwing a number out there, and there's probably some hidden cost in there. We call them fish hooks. There's always a hidden cost because you have to pay for your pizza, right? There is no free lunch. You can rent or you can own, but there is no free lunch. And most businesses will make a decision, and we see that time and time again on how well that works. With a truly innovative consultant, they'll be willing to put their compensation at risk. Align the incentives so that if you meet these goals, then the compensation, think about that. A risk-based model for compensation. If the plan doesn't perform the way that we predict it will, then you don't pay. Imagine that. Now, how many people were going to put their compensation at risk? Because if you have a negative experience, you don't end up paying. I do that. And you can judge any consultant out there that's willing to put their compensation at risk every day. For more information about that, check us out at www.bettersourcebenefits and click on the results tab. Because the right consultant can help business leaders achieve their optimal vision. When choosing comparing health plans, benefits consultants aim to find a balance that benefits both employers and employees. And that starts with a better understanding of the company's needs, the client's needs, not the insurance company's needs. And when you select a health plan for your business, it should be a strategic decision on many factors. Your company's unique proposition, it might, one size fits one. You've got unique needs, objectives, and employees. You may have a skilled workforce that needs a very special package. Remember, while price is important, your decision would not be based primarily on the cost of a plan. What you want is you want to be able to control the healthcare costs and put in the strategies and solutions that do that. So before you select a plan, your benefits consultant will help you plan for your existing and future needs, put together a 3-year to 5-year outlook for you, and will have more than a 30-day window to meet and develop that. Because if you're coming in 30 days prior to the effective date with a spreadsheet, folks, please reach out to us and we'd like to talk to you more. www.bettersourcebenefits.com, because anyone can sell something and walk away. Years and years of practice have shown that we encounter a lot of clients and prospects who have purchased a plan. Whoever sold it to them walked away, left the business, did it because they were related to someone that was a friend and that sort of thing. And they put a product in with no strategy. And if you don't have somebody that can support you after the sale, think of the benefits consultant as the concierge between your business and the insurance company, or your business and the third-party administrator. There are things that a pro consultant knows how to handle that a typical broker on the street does not. Because after implementing your custom plan, consultants aid your company in a whole wide range of insurance-related tasks, whether it's risk management. It can start with accounts, reviewing of reports, assisting with claims, handling vendor negotiations, plan design enhancements and changes, and then ultimately renewals. You got to have that ongoing support and assistance for a plan, because when problems occur, you understand the flow of the business, you understand the flow of the claims process, and you understand where you can insert yourself to get minimal disruption and optimal results. And you can also rely on a professional benefits consultant to help with other benefits, whether it's life, dental, vision, disability, all of these things, voluntary or enhanced products, because they're all part of that ecosystem of employee benefits. And a pro really knows where to go. So that's it for today. One last shout out to our sponsor, Better Source Benefits, Benefits Options Solutions. Check us out at www.bettersourcebenefits.com. And also, if you'd like to book a meeting with me, click on the About tab and book a meeting with yours truly, Johnny Dollar. Join us next week, same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, for Benefits with John Clay. Hope to see you another time.